Good evening, everyone, and of course, it is Tuesday evening, and this time, every Tuesday, we bring you our live doctrine call program. This evening, we have a very special program. Of course, we're looking at vaccines. It's Vaccination Week. It's celebrated around the world, and tonight we will be talking about that, the importance of vaccines, and of course we'll explain to you, of course our guest will explain to you the importance of vaccines and why we should be vaccinated when it comes to certain conditions. Dr. Sonia Nixon is with me as always, and tonight we're joined by Nurse Hannah St. Paul, and she's the manager of the EPI department. All right, of course, that's the department that deals with vaccines, and she will be chatting with us a bit. All right, we're also expected to be joined by Dr. Rey Charles during the course of the program, of course, so we look forward to that. A little later on, as always, we will open our telephone lines and take your calls. Of course, if you have any questions, we'll be happy to try to accommodate you and provide you with as much information as possible. So we say welcome to our viewers on GBN Television, our viewers on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, and to you, our listeners on K105 FM. It is a good time to welcome our guest, Dr. Nixon. Good evening and welcome again.
Hi, good evening, Grenada. We've gotten a little rain, thank the Lord.
Yes, indeed.
With a little rain comes a lot of mosquitoes, so let's be very, very, very careful how we deal with this wonderful rain that we're getting.
Yes, it's a pleasure, of course, and Nurse Hannah St. Paul is with us. Nurse St. Paul, good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening, Godfrey. Good evening, Dr. Nixon, and thank you for having
Hi,
us.
Nurse St. Paul, how are you doing? Good to have you tonight with us.
Yeah, Nurse St. Paul, can you turn your camera on? I think we're not seeing you. So if you can turn
my camera is on, based on from here, my camera is on.
Okay.
Let me try again.
We'll see if we can have that rectified. I'm not sure what is happening.
I think the God's trying to be against us, but we're good.
We're gonna have that sorted out in no time at all. So yes, tonight we're talking about vaccines. Or Nurse St. Paul, what you probably can do, you can try logging out and coming back in, and let's see if that is going to work. If not, then we would just have to make do. All right. So, Dr. Nixon, it's Vaccination Week. We know how important vaccinations are, or immunization, as it referred to most times. Recently, there seem to have been some issues with vaccines. And I must mention with COVID-19, the whole vaccine thing all of a sudden became an issue, and there was some pushbacks as it relates to the vaccines. I'm not sure why some people seem to be a little frightened and so on and so forth. But what I want us to do, before we get into a lot of the discussion, is to probably explain to our listeners, when we speak of a vaccine, what is it we're talking about? How are vaccines created, and what do they do? So let's just open by, contextualizing what is a vaccine.
I wish Dr. Rey was here already, because that's his space, okay? Mm-hmm. Good evening again, Grenada. The whole talk of vaccine has been quite present. Everybody learned and agreed and disagreed and accepted or rejected the concept, the word, with the coming of COVID-19. Prior to that, vaccination was a phenomenon in which we just took our kids to the health center, because mostly our children received vaccines, took our kids to the health center, and they got the vaccines against a series of diseases. All of a sudden, this whole new concept changed. And the whole concept seemed to have changed, simply because the mechanism by which that concept was made, that vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine, and all the variants of it, the different, you have the AstraZeneca, which is a pharmaceutical company. You have the Oxford, comes from Oxford University. You have the Pfizer, which is another pharmaceutical company, and the Chinese and the Cuban and whichever ones we've had, right? But they're all pharmaceutical products that we know, products that are built, like how we build medicines. Now, our bodies have a system called the immune system, which protects us from disease. But sometimes these diseases are so intense, and sometimes we're too young, or the immune system is not sufficiently developed. And so vaccines were created to prevent that. You know, I always give this story. As a younger physician, asking women in particular, don't ask me why, but women, how many children your grandmother had? So I'm going to talk about 4 generations back. Oh, my grandmother she had 8 children, but only 4 of them come, meaning only 4 of them lived into adulthood or any level of productivity. Because they died, and most of them died in the 0 to 5 age group, or infant mortality, death of infants, 0 to 2, 0 to 5. They came, they born, okay. But, you know, they died. There are other things that were mitigating factors, other factors that really contributed to the reason why these children died. People were poorer, so the nutritional state was worse. We weren't as health educated as we are currently. There wasn't as much access to even antibiotics or hospital, or we live far, we don't have transport, whatever it is. And we just didn't understand half the time. And then we had other myths, like we believe somebody do your child have maljo, blah, 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 right? So that's just part of the whole cultural scenario in which we found ourselves, right? And so children died early, but they died from things like measles, excuse me, and mumps and chickenpox and pneumonias and whooping cough and typhoid and cholera, and just things that in a lot of cases could be avoided if we understood how they worked. And once vaccines were developed against these diseases, our children thrived. So my father lived to 84 years, and he comes from that era. My mother lived to her 80s as well, right? I went to a funeral for a lady who died today, she was 95. Harry Belafonte was 96, he died today. So they came into that era where lives were changing, right? And so we developed vaccines. What are they? They're basically chemical substances that are given to us. They're products of the organism, the virus, the bacteria itself, that is placed in our body, but in very small concentrations, right? And what happens when something strange comes into your house? You take precaution, like, what are you doing in here? Who are you? What are you doing? Immune system response saying, oh, what's this? But it's just a small control amount, often what you call attenuated, kind of sedated, put down. They're not going to act, but they're present and they're strangers in your body. What does your body do? Your body provides what we call antibodies. There's an immune response, right? In other words, your immune system responds and produces antibodies. Enough. So if you get some more, it can affect. Because the truth is, the virus that affects you today is probably still there tomorrow, right? We've had people around us, who probably have had measles, but we haven't had measles in Grenada simply because measles we had sufficient vaccination, sufficient people with immunity. Probably our age group had measles because we were born before the measles vaccines. But sufficient people had measles or had a measles vaccine so that should come in the middle. And we'll talk about that phenomenon called herd immunity. And we hear about it a lot. There are all these things in it. Now, so basically, a vaccine is a compound that's introduced into the body of someone, of a subject, a person, me, you, or children, a mother, or father, whoever it is, and that triggers off, makes something happen, makes your body respond, makes your immune system respond to produce these factors called antibodies. But remember I said a little bit we got. So if you come in a position where there's a whole lot of these viruses going on, there's a measles outbreak or there's a polio outbreak, the fact that you already have polio antibodies, once that virus is introduced into your body, I remember I tell you, polio virus, for example, is spread by coughing, sharing droplets, measles, right? And on and on. So once it is introduced into your body, you already have an immune system that has all these antibodies. Hey, call out the army, you call out the soldiers, everybody come and shoot them down, and you don't get ill. And then people, why? So what's the big thing about having polio? The big thing about having polio is that polio is going to make your child disabled physically if he doesn't die. Measles is going to make your child get brain disease, get inflammation of the brain, and encephalitis, get pneumonias and conditions that can kill them, right? Even if you see a little rash, it goes beyond. That's just one of the things that happen when the virus gets into your body. It produces this little itchy rash on your skin. Chicken pox, they have complications. And probably the worst complication, we've seen a lot of it recently to chicken pox, is that it also causes shingles. So you might get chicken pox and you itch for 2 days and your mother bathe you with Coradi bush and whatever else you put on your skin, calamine lotion, and give you Benadryl and all the rest. And that will control the symptoms and you probably survive. But shingles is a killer. Shingles is one of the most painful experiences and most long-standing painful experiences people can have. The pain of shingles is almost unbearable. Why would we allow ourselves to get diseases that we can prevent? Why would we get diseases that can cause severe complications? Why would we not want to take a vaccine? I remember when I got polio vaccine. I was probably like 9. And I'm walking home from high school and I live in Lamode. And I have to walk the mile up to where I lived. And you saw the nurse in a gray uniform, the brownish uniform, everybody hate. All public health nurses know that every single school child hate them. That's why once you come around the corner to the school, they start bawling. Why? The whole school. You have mass bawling. And about a dozen of us are walking home in the afternoon from school. And the nurse called us. No, you can't not go, because if your mother know that nurse call you and you're rude and you go, you're going to get licks. And she says, come, I have a vaccine for you. And I remember it very clearly. And the rest of them start to bawl. But nurse knows my mother, so I might as well go to the gallows. And she says, no, but this one is easy. It's just a little sugar. That's when the oral polio vaccine was first introduced. A lump of sugar with a pink drop, a drop of pink something. I guess because it was so bitter anyway. And that was our vaccine. That was changed, because before that, polio vaccine used to be injected. Right? So recently, what's the most recent vaccine? The COVID vaccine. It developed differently. We have greater knowledge of immunology and immunological pathways. And they use that to develop the vaccines. And people got untrusting because it was new. Did they wonder whether we were having challenge, whether we'd have problem with the oral polio vaccine? Yes, they did. Because inclusive, there was a world outbreak of polio. In order to be able to prevent your children from getting polio, anybody, because there are kids who can't get vaccines. That's the bottom line. There are people who cannot take vaccines. But they are a very, very small percentage of the population. But in order to prevent polio doing what it did to Western Africa, Nigeria in particular, places like South Sudan, Pakistan that still has polio every day, killing off children. And those are probably the biggest territory. Not so much Nigeria anyway, because of changes after, just before COVID, there's an outbreak because the imams, those spiritual leaders among the Muslim groups, said that their children were not to be vaccinated, and they lost hundreds of their children.
Right.
Simply because they did not get a simple drop on their tongue.
Okay. So, Doc, I wanna bring in Nurse St. Paul here.
She's here. Yeah.
Yes, she's back with us. She's probably having a little challenge with her connection, but nevertheless, she's here. And what is important is information. So, Nurse St. Paul, let's talk a bit about the vaccines. You're in charge of that department. Tell us about the state of vaccines in Grenada. What are some of the diseases that still require vaccines? And I'm not talking about COVID yet, but prior to that, Doc mentioned things like the smallpox, the polio, and some of these other diseases. Talk to us about that.
All right, Godfrey. I'm not sure what is happening with my connection. I hope that you're hearing me.
Very, very, very clear. Very clear.
Yes, we are.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, our immunization program, or what we call the expanded program on immunization within the Ministry of Health, continues to offer safe vaccines to our population. And you ask, what are some of the vaccines that are offered under our program? Currently, we offer several vaccines. I think we have a total of 11 vaccines that we offer as vaccines that prevent vaccine-preventable diseases. We have our polio, measles, mumps, and rubella. We offer tetanus vaccines against diphtheria, pertussis. We also offer influenza vaccines, HPV vaccine, which is our human papilloma virus that helps to prevent cervical cancers. And we have hepatitis B, which we administer at birth, and we also offer to our adults as well. So these are some of the vaccines that are currently within our program that we offer to our children and adults. We also offer our COVID-19 vaccines, and we have different types of vaccines as it relates. I heard Dr. Nixon would have explained about the different types. We had offered the AstraZeneca, Pfizer, and the Moderna. And we continue to offer those vaccines to the public. We also offer varicella vaccine, which is our chickenpox vaccines. So these are just some of the vaccines that we offer, and we are looking in future because we are currently seeing an increase in pneumonias, especially among our elderly. And we also have a category of persons within Grenada and that lives with sickle cell. And sickle cell, persons that are living with sickle cell, they usually be affected sometimes with pneumonias and things like that. So we are looking in future as a ministry to bring in or to start introducing in future the pneumococcal vaccine, which would help to protect our elderlies and our sicklers from these diseases.
Okay, wonderful. And that
I want to ask a question before Nurse goes. Nurse, can you explain what those vaccines, what diseases they are? Like you mentioned, the hepatitis B. Just expand a little on what each vaccine works on. You mentioned like pertussis and stuff, so that the community can understand exactly what those diseases are.
Well, Dr. Nixon, to follow up on what you said earlier, you were explaining to Godfrey that most of these diseases are viruses, right? They are viruses that cause the disease, like polio or measles. And when these viruses affect persons, it results in what we will call complications to the child or to the adult. So person with tetanus, for instance, people used to call it lockjaw. Yes? So you have paralysis taking place, sometimes of the entire body, and the person cannot move. So it affects your lungs, it affects how you breathe, and that can result in death. So these diseases, why they are important is because they have the ability to result in severe disability or death. So we might say there are a lot of viruses out there that we pick up from time to time, but these viruses are what we would call, I don't want to say insignificant, but it doesn't contribute to the level of complication or death as if we were to be contracted something like polio or hepatitis B, because these diseases, they affect different parts of the body. Like hepatitis B, you're speaking about your liver, and these are essential organs that you need to function. And when these parts of your body are affected, then the results is most of the time complication or severe complication that threatens your way of life and also result in death.
Right. Let's just talk a little bit about, I've heard about the rubella, and it does have it can have effects on fetuses and so. Talk to us a little about that.
Okay. Well, congenital rubella syndrome really affects the pregnant woman. So, if a pregnant woman were to get that virus, what happens is that that pregnant woman can pass that virus on to her unborn child or her born child, and that child now after birth or during birth, because if you some most of the time women contracting congenital rubella, they may have miscarriages, so the pregnancy may not go to full term, right? And we know that the stress that can result or the emotional impact that can result from someone losing a child, and if you have the child coming to full term, then that child can be born with complication like blindness and so that affects the way of life for that child, and at the end of the day and affect the entire family as a result, because now you have to look, that child would have a lot of medical issues that the parents now have to be faced with to deal with every day. So imagine you have a child being born blind at birth. From there, it affects the parents' life and their way of life, because let's say you have a nuclear family with mother, father, child, and both of them are working. How do you now have to adjust for this child? Because this child become a special child. When it goes into the daycare, you have, maybe they would ask you to pay a special fee or something in order to do extra for that child. So it affects your entire livelihood when you have persons being affected with those diseases.
One other question on rubella. Um, the pregnant mother, is she always aware that she has rubella, or it can occur and that pregnant mother not knowing about it?
I will allow Dr. Nixon to elaborate on that, since she is
Doc?
the medical practitioner here.
Yeah. Doc, you're muted. You need to unmute.
So rubella is a disease like other viral diseases, and sometimes you may not know your flu symptoms, but sometimes you get a rash, a breakout rash in a few days, and if you know it's going around, then it's likely to happen. I think what's most significant is that when women get rubella or German measles, right? When you get German measles in the first trimester, those first 3 months of pregnancy, where especially very early in pregnancy, where the heart is being formed, and early days when the brain is being formed and other organs, right? It's unfortunate in those first 6 weeks of pregnancy should you contract rubella, because that's when a lot of the damage is done to that fetus, that baby in the mother's womb, the early part of pregnancy, a lot of it. Like nurse mentioned, that you can actually have miscarriages. Your body just expels this fetus because it becomes so damaged. So it's really bad. It becomes so damaged by that virus that's attacked it, through the mother's infection. The challenge of having a child with severe heart problems, because that's one of the biggest problems, severe cardiovascular, what we call, in general, heart problems. Children born with severe physical malformations, but also a lot of with learning disability, because the brain does not evolve completely to what a normal baby will have at birth. So, as nursing implied, it becomes a very expensive thing for sustainability, the constant cardiologist visit. Think about it. 30 years, 20 years ago, you probably didn't have a cardiologist who was always available. And these persons often require a lot of support, a lot of interventions, a lot of medication, surgery, you name it, in order to survive. The good thing about it is that one vaccine gives you coverage for life. So if you've had your shots, the possibility of developing or getting infected by a rubella virus that's spreading around the community is almost zilch. But also remember, we have to have a certain amount of the population that is vaccinated effectively if we want to have that kind of safety.
Doc, I have a question, and maybe Nurse St. Paul can chime in as well. let's say, for example, because you mentioned earlier that with a vaccine, or how the vaccine is made up, you get a weakened dose of a virus, or dead or something, or a pathway, and that is injected. So it does not affect you really.
Not necessarily. We have OPV.
Okay, right. So
that's introduced.
Right. So based on that, if someone, let's say, for example, got, let's say, measles, right? So you had an attack of measles. Because the vaccine is a weakened dose of the same thing, if you have an attack of measles, what are the chances of you contracting measles again? Because I'm thinking here, getting measles in itself, it's like a vaccine.
It is. So you get what we call natural immunity from having had an infection. Your body does go through the same pathway, except that you didn't get ill. Maybe because your immune system is quite strong. You know, you're nutritionally healthy, you exercise, etc. And you get an infection with, is measles, you say?
Yeah.
Measles. And your body will produce anyway antibodies. So if you come in contact with the measles virus again, you shouldn't get an infection.
Okay. You should.
So that natural immunity does cover you as much as having artificial immunity. Do you want to take the chance to say, oh, that my child have measles? No, I don't. I don't want to know that my child cannot handle this large influx, this onslaught of viruses. Whereas if I give a vaccine, I'll give attenuated viruses and I'll give small doses.
Right. Okay, so we need to take a short break here. When we come back, I have a couple more questions I want to ask Nuss and Paul, and then we'll open the line a little later on. Stay with us, folks. We'll be back with you in just a moment.
Do you have muscular pain that no one can find a solution for? Are you tired of taking meds for joints and other pains? Hills and Valley Medicare Center on Grenville Street, St. George is here to help you heal. We will help you map a path to your full recovery. Visit us Monday to Saturday for a consultation with our on-site doctor, physiotherapist, and massage team. You will be glad you did. Our Medicare Center, a proud member of the Hills and Valley group of companies. On the hilltop or in the valley, we are with you wherever life takes you. Hills and Valley Pharmacy. Your health is our business.
Girl, the children are growing up so fast. When I leave here, I am going to take Tevin to get his MMR vaccine.
Kayla was supposed to have another appointment for that same vaccine. But Natalie, I'm not sure. On social media, they're saying that it's not safe. Plus, I can afford to miss work.
Girl, the vaccines are safe for decades. They protect our children. You got vaccinated, and I'm sure you're all right.
Yes, but these diseases aren't out now.
Grenada is open to childhood diseases from all over the world. Today, we have a choice to get our children vaccinated or not. Go get it done, girl. It won't take long.
I suppose so. Anything for my princess.
I want to be protected.
Check your doctor or the Ministry of Health to get the information on immunization against childhood diseases, including HPV and polio, and COVID-19 for elderly persons and persons living with non-communicable diseases.
From the farm to the store to your home. Supporting farmers, catering for your needs. The Food Fair Supermarket provides fresh fruits and vegetables from its 2 convenient locations for over 5 decades. The Food Fair Supermarkets, where you can fill your baskets without emptying your pockets.
When a loved one
one passes on, we all need the comfort, support, and guidance of a trusted friend. You can rely on LaCour Brothers Funeral Home. We provide a personalized professional service that exceeds all expectations. Our dedicated staff responds to your every need with the greatest detail, ensuring affordability with a variety of options. Our upgraded state-of-the-art facilities, spacious air-conditioned chapel with live internet streaming, a modern, environmentally safe crematorium, the only of its kind on island, private viewing spaces, large on-site repast center, a modern transportation fleet. Join our burial society today and make personalized arrangements for that final moment. As you prepare to enter your loved one into eternal rest, visit or call LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and select a package that brings added comfort to the entire family. LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and Burial Society, continuing a tradition of excellence.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Doctor and Call. We're talking about vaccines this evening, and in a bit we'll be opening our telephone line to take your questions. Now, St. Paul, I'm coming back to you. Now, as a young fellow growing up, I recall, my mom and others and other ladies in the community, whenever a baby was born, it was like almost mandatory that that child gets some vaccine at a certain time. As they grew a little older, and of course they had their vaccination card, and you had to go in and all the little stuff that was involved. Is that still happening? Are there any vaccines that are mandatory at this point? Now, St. Paul, I think you're muted. You need to unmute your microphone.
Yes. Godfrey, yes, just to chime in on your previous questions as it relates to if a pregnant woman may or may not know that they're infected with rubella. And it's highly that there are times when a woman may not be aware that they are infected with rubella, but it can be passed on or spread or transferred to their infant during the process, even if they didn't have any symptoms or knowledge of that. Yes, so I just wanted to reiterate that, and Dr. Nixon would have answered your natural immunity from having the measles, the disease measles, then it's highly likely that you may not get it again because you develop a natural immunity towards it. Okay. But why risk the chance? Because if these diseases are fatal, are we willing to have it and risk the chance of death in order to get natural immunity? That is the question.
Yes, indeed.
As it relates to our vaccination program, yes, Godfrey, that has continued. And every child that visits the clinic goes home with their child health card or records. That continues and that remains the same. And the nurses continue to be dedicated to doing this. As it relates to mandatory vaccination, our childhood immunization program has a legislation that goes with it that helps to enforce that children has to be immunized. So in order for any child in Grenada to enter school, that any level of school, that child's supposed to be fully vaccinated. Yes? And the law allows us to ensure that these children are fully vaccinated. It has been in our legislation from since 1980, and it forms part of the Education Act. And we rely heavily on the Ministry of Education. As a Ministry of Health, when it comes to vaccination, we work in collaboration with two other ministries, the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Social Development. Because you can appreciate that the Ministry of Social Development is the ministry in which our daycares falls under, and Ministry of Education for our schools. So we work together with them, we collaborate with them to ensure that the immunization or the Children Public Health Act is enforced to ensure that our vaccination coverage can be maintained or sustained at a high level. However, we have been having some challenges in that area, as we all are seeing a little bit more resistance from our younger parents on a daily basis.
Right. Also, are there conditions where a child might not be vaccinated?
Well, the law is clear. Exemptions are given to children under medical grounds. We have and we have spiritual grounds or religion. Yes, sorry. So there's a process to follow for an exemption. So it's not that a parent would say that my child cannot receive a vaccine and we just accept it like that. The law states the process that has to be followed and who is the authority to give that exemption. So the doctor, the nurse cannot exempt a child from vaccination. What they can do is make a recommendation, and we have a process that has to be followed and for that child to be unfit for vaccination and be exempted from our vaccination program.
Right. If, for example, a mother decides, you know what, I don't want my child get any vaccine. Does the act provide for some sort of action against the parent?
Yes, the act gives the Ministry of Education the authority to take action, because if a child is not vaccinated, the act states that the child has to be fully vaccinated to be in school. So if that child is not exempted through the process, then the Ministry of Health can take action against that child.
Against the child or the parent?
Well, it would be the child, because the child is the one who it's well, the family, let's say the family.
Right.
Because it would involve the child maybe not being able to attend school as a result of the action of the parent.
Right. Okay. Very interesting. Doc, anything you want to add in here?
No, yes. I want to talk long before the law. Or enforcing the law. So the law is created to punish people. The law is created to keep the population well. And Nurse alluded to the two things I want to speak to. One is the whole issue of creating well people. The American pediatric nurses and the pediatrician tell you that, I'm sorry about the dog, I'm really sorry about the dog, tell you that vaccines create adults. And you can understand what that means. If you remember what we spoke about in the beginning, or people are not dying under the age of 5 because of diseases that are preventable by vaccines. There's a thing called the Well Child Clinic, where your child goes and not only his weight, his head circumference, and his size and waist, and how much fat he has on his arm or not, and how, whether his teeth are coming, whether his vision is good, whether he has whatever allergy to the food he's consuming, all the things that show that your child is reaching his normal milestones. And into that program is integrated the program of vaccines. Remember you asked Nurse about going to the clinic? I want to know if you never take your own children to the clinic, but you and I will talk about that off air, okay? So because if you have healthy young people, healthy babies, you're likely to have healthy children. To have healthy children, you'll have healthy adults, okay? And so the whole program of immunization, and it's not just Grenada, is introduced from birth. So like hepatitis B that prevents vaccine. Hepatitis B is one of the different kind of hepatitis viruses. Hepatitis has to do with the liver. You hear anything that says hepatitis, hepatic, it is describing the liver. The hepatitis B vaccine actually prevents us from getting hepatitis B, which is a virus, which actually can make us get chronic liver problems, and we can also develop liver cancer, and it can get from hepatitis B. It can kill you, okay? So, and that's given at birth. 2 days old and you already have your first hepatitis shot, you have to get 3. Hepatitis B was introduced when I was an adult. I was working in the emergency room. when hepatitis B. So we've seen advance, right? And more protection. So there's that one thing, the thing of keeping well. But there's another phenomenon that we need to mention here, and you've heard it a lot during COVID, the phenomena of herd immunity, HERD, like I heard a cow or heard a goat or heard a whatever animals. We all live in an environment, and the more of us that have that protective capacity by having had our vaccines is the less possibility there is for somebody who can't have a vaccine to get the infection. So picture this. You put 100 balls into a box, right? 100 balls. And 97 of those balls are blue, meaning 97 are blue like my shirt. And the other 3 are, what about salmon, like your shirt? Can't see what I'm wearing. And then you drop, let's say you drop 10 marbles in there. Think of the chance of an orange or salmon-colored ball getting hit. So let me put it in a sense of disease now. You have 100 people. 97 of them have the vaccine, so they're immune to the disease. 3 of them have not had a vaccine for whatever purpose. Okay? And you drop 10 marbles in there. Talk about tennis-sized ball. You drop 10 marbles. The chance of those 3 balls hit by one of the marbles, okay, is much less, right, than the chance of the blue balls, because there are a whole lot more blue balls. So the blue balls are actually people who are vaccinated. But because they're vaccinated, the chance of them getting illness is bad. When this virus, the marbles are viruses. When you introduce the marbles, there's hardly a chance, less chance, much less chance that an orange ball or salmon-colored ball will be affected. So the other scenario, you have 100 balls in a box. 60 of them are blue, and 40 of them are pink, salmon, like your shirt. And you drop the same 10 marbles in there. What happens to the rate at which, what are the possibilities that an orange one would be hit? Is it more or is it less? I'll ask you, Godfrey.
Oh, yeah. It's higher.
So the orange one is much higher, okay? That's what's called herd immunity. That the herd, because those 3 children who are not vaccinated may have cancer, some other autoimmune disease, some other thing that they just can't take the vaccine. I have 3 mothers that decide they're not vaccinating their children. But if 30 mothers decide they're not vaccinating their children, or 60 mothers decide they're not vaccinating, one ball goes in there, and the likelihood of it getting hit is greater. Plus, when they're all in the same space, one gets hit, one gets sick. The sick one is sick in the next one, sick in the next one, sick in the next one. You get my drift? That is what we call herd immunity. Where a large percentage of the population has their vaccines, has their protection, and decreasing significantly the potential, the risk of those people who are not vaccinated getting the disease. So this is my opinion. This is Sonia Nixon speaking. I think that's some of the behaviors on which people who do not vaccinate their children go, knowing that there's so many children who are vaccinated out there that my child is unlikely to get it. I think it's a selfish way to look at it. That's my opinion. Sonia Nixon. This is not a Ministry of Health. This is nobody else. This is how I feel. I also think it's unfair to children because you never know how serious the outcome will be. You never know. And that is why there's this trust. I'm going to ask Nurse when I'm finished to give an idea as to where our vaccine numbers have gone, because we're really in trouble. This false sense of safety, this false sense of protection that we have is going to cost us a lot. 50 years ago, 60 years ago, people were dying from infectious diseases. Malaria, smallpox, chickenpox, smallpox a little before that, right? Measles, mumps, all the diphtheria, children getting rheumatic heart disease, pneumonias, especially pneumonias, and also we have reached a point where we've been able to control infectious diseases that are caused, the infectious diseases, those that are caused by viruses and bacteria and other kind of organisms. And we have to make sure that the things we have control over, we take care. Today, what we have a lot of is chronic diseases like lifestyle diseases like hypertension and diabetes, brought on by obesity and the complications, the kidney problems and the blindness and the loss of limbs and the heart attacks and the strokes and all the rest. Okay? You remember August and September 2020 when 200 people in Grenada died from COVID? I don't know that we get over with that yet. Let's say it's not COVID. Let's say it's measles. Let's say it's polio, because polio is probably one of the most highly infectious viruses. It is very virulent. It will it will spread very quickly and infect people with short notice, okay, or none at all. So think if we were to have an outbreak of polio, why would we want to do that to our children? Why would we want to do it to our health system? Why do we want to do it to our economy? Why do we want to do it to the schools? Why do we want to do it to parents? Why do we want to do it to anybody at all? When we have the power to control it. And that's what we need to think about. We were like sitting ducks against COVID until the vaccine came. Yes, and the vaccine came with all of its negative propaganda that people who were selfish and irresponsible for the most part decided to do, right? It's a decision for you to make. So what I'm saying is I want to make the plea to parents to reconsider not having given your children vaccines, okay? That's why our children have been well. That's why our children have stayed well. That's why they haven't had pneumonias and chickenpox. Listen to me, all we need is one child to come from America where vaccines are not obligatory and come from America and infect our children when we consider how low a vaccine uptake has been. There was a time when the Caribbean was being considered for having eliminated measles. That is no longer so. Because our vaccine uptake was so great that it was unlikely that if anybody came into the country, if our army came into the country with measles, that we will get measles. That's not so today. We're not in a good way. Mm-hmm. We're not in a good place. That's something we have control over.
You know, Doc, this is very important, and I want to address North St. Paul again, because I'm familiar with the act actually, and I think maybe our health system, or health sector, or health services needs to get people more aware of what is in the act, because there are a number of penalties. Let me just share one quickly. The penalty on parent for neglecting vaccination of a child. Every parent who shall neglect to take his or her child, or to cause it to be taken to be vaccinated, or after vaccination to be inspected according to the provision of this act, and shall not render a reasonable excuse for his or her neglect, shall be guilty of an offense and liable on summary conviction to a fine of $50. Now that's the only problem I have here, because $50, you know. but
that's less than a manicure.
The bottom line is there are things in place to ensure that people do what is right. I noticed there are also penalties for parent not making the child available and things like that. And there are fines. So, North St. Paul, what are we doing here?
Godfrey, we have been doing, we can do a lot more as it relates to education and sensitization of our population on the act. However, on the community nurses has been doing a lot, meeting with the PTAs. We have met with our the principals of every different category of school, with collaborating with the Ministry of Education to bring awareness and sensitize them and remind them, because as I said, it's in the Education Act. So we would have done that last year. We would have done some work on that, and we continue to do that. Recently, we realized how needed that information is. So we have developed now some posters that we are going to be sending out into the schools so that it can be placed in strategic location, so that parents themselves, the teachers themselves, can be reminded of what the act says and what they need to do. And we are even doing some more of education as we celebrate Vaccination Week in the Americas. This week, we are celebrating Vaccination Week in the Americas, which started from the 22nd of April to the 29th of April, together with the Pan American Health Organization and the rest of the region in the Americas. We are celebrating the 21st Annual Vaccination Week in the Americas and the 12th World Immunization Week. And we are doing this under the slogan and call to action to the population at large to get up to date. Each vaccine counts. And the reason why we are calling the population to action and we are saying get up to date, each vaccine counts, is because we see the need, Godfrey, as a ministry to provide more education, much more awareness, making our parents and population know what really vaccination is all about and what are their responsibility in this program.
Right. I have one other major question that I think maybe both yourself and Doc can speak on it, as it relates to, because it's also one of the concerns I think that people have, side effects of vaccines. Doc, you want to go first?
Well, what I've learned and what I've seen, so usually there is the issue of contact with something being put. So you get a needle stick and you put something, a little bit of chemical in there, you get itching, swelling, burning. You might scratch it and it gets infected, but that's very rare because those symptoms tend to disappear quickly. You might even get sometimes symptoms of the disease that you're trying to prevent. You know, headache, nausea, feeling fluish. You know, like how you feel, those what we call prodromal symptoms, the symptoms that come on before the full-blown disease, right? There's been a lot of talk about especially COVID vaccine. There's been a lot of talk about vaccines causing, what do you call it? Autism in children.
Autism, yes,
but,
yes.
Hear me now. Last week they talked that it's Tylenol that caused COVID. Not called COVID, cause autism. And why there's a lot of research, right? Every pharmaceutical company is obligated to post this. When you open the box of medication and you see a piece of paper in there, that called prospectus is obligated to post before it can be passed. Is obligated to disclose all signs, because doing medication has different phases, and a lot of this was spoken about during COVID. So you develop it and said, this looks like it's going to stop X, and then you try it. And you see it on a bigger population. So you try it on 50, 60 people. Works, you try it on a bigger population. And when you start to produce, you try it on an even bigger population, thousands of people, before you release a medication. On top of it, even when a medication is released, right? Even when a medication is released, you actually have people who have to report side effects that they experience. So we've had medications like thalidomide. Thalidomide was developed in the late 50s, early 60s. Use it a lot because women, they get irritable during pregnancy, they don't sleep, and then they take it early. And mostly in the first world, they'd give them these medications and the children fail to develop limbs. We've seen a lot of people.
West German babysitter.
I'm sorry?
The West German babysitter. That's what it was called, yes.
Thalidomide, right. and those get taken off. What we also have to remember, if we don't, and if just in case we don't know, is that while a medication is in the process of being researched, if side effects occur, severe side effects occur frequently, or even death of one person, they have to cancel. They have to cancel the development of the drug. They have to cancel it. I remember in the probably late 90s or very, very, very early 2000s, Pfizer was developing a new anti-cholesterol drug. And was one person died. Up to that, it seemed quite efficacious for the prevention, very effective, but for the prevention of high cholesterol. But one person dead, then another person. I think they had in total like 6, and they canceled it. Pfizer spent like $6 billion in research by then. But that's how it goes. So it's to me, it was unfair to say that medications are given without being researched properly. Simply because we also using other newer mechanisms that can make us understand where we understand quicker what it is that happened, what it is, what are the side effects, why they happen, because we just a little more advanced technologically. But yes, cancer may cause that people get allergy. People get allergy to water. People get allergy to eating peanuts and they drop dead because that immune response is so out of the park, so intense, right? Your body reacts so intensely, so violently, you can die. You can die. Mm-hmm. I'm not an authority on all of the concepts related to, or the ideas or the science related to the different COVID vaccines and who they cause to death. The bottom line is that people talk about COVID vaccines causing people to die for the exact same reason that people died from COVID, having bleeds and all the rest of it. So, we kind of need to sit down and go to the material and not try to pull wool over people's eyes and all be honest. The bottom line is that we've been vaccinating our children for decades. Decades in Grenada. I won't tell you how many decades I've been through when I've had my vaccines, okay? And why now? Why would we want to stop now? Who bears the burden of the costs? Who's going to carry that responsibility to take care of the cost of taking care of somebody who becomes infected, or a bunch of children who get infected with a disease that is preventable that might cause brain damage or cause you to have physical for the rest of your life? Mm-hmm. Okay. Or have pneumonias and die? Mm-hmm. That's my challenge, and I think it's a responsibility we all have. I'm going to urge parents, fathers and mothers to reconsider. And I understand, I want you to understand, I really understand how people felt and got scared, especially like during COVID, with a vaccine being developed quickly. We are lucky. I tell you, I got my OPV when we had a world outbreak of polio. Still walk straight. So.
Mm-hmm. Nothing, Paul.
We also expect that. Yeah. We also hold on. We also expect hold on. Yes. We also expect the producers of pharmaceutical products and vaccines are part of that to be responsible, to be publicly responsible to the large group of the millions, the billions of us. Almost 9 billion people, to be responsible for our well-being and our transition into adulthood through the production of childhood vaccines and otherwise.
Okay. So, St. Paul, anything you'd like to add here?
Yes, Godfrey. We want to assure the public that vaccines are safe, and vaccine has been safe for decades now. It has been proven, and it still remains. If one vaccine is still the number one public health achievement when it comes to prevention of diseases. It continues to remain that way. And because vaccines are safe, the side effects of vaccines are very mild. Most of the time, you have mild side effects like soreness to the site where you get the injection, a little swelling, maybe fever as a result of the body building up its immunity against the disease. However, severe side effects against vaccines are very rare. It's not that it don't occur, but it's very rare. And within our immunization program here in Grenada, we can boast that we have not had any significant adverse reaction from vaccines. As I say, we have mild reactions from time to time. However, within the immunization program, there's a monitoring system that we call the ISAVI. So we have what ISAVI really means is events supposedly attributed to vaccines or immunization. So every child that has been vaccinated, if they develop any adverse or side effects, it is reported, or that child ends up in the hospital. The information is reported and it is followed up. Yes, investigation is done to ensure that whatever symptoms, whatever adverse reaction that child or adult, anyone that receive a vaccine has been displaying, it is actually the cause of the vaccine. And most of the time, it's not really the cause the vaccine is causing the issue, but most of the time, whatever symptom that is being displayed is because of another reason. So there is a monitoring mechanism within the program to ensure and to make sure that vaccines that we are giving to persons are safe.
Okay. We have a caller on the line. Let's go to the telephone. Doctor and call, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening, caller.
I want the doctor or the nurse to tell me the long-term side effects of COVID vaccine.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think anybody can tell you what is the long-term side effects of COVID vaccine, because COVID vaccine has not been here for more than 3 years. So that is not something that you can tell, because remember, prospective research takes place as time goes by. And because COVID is so new, anybody who tells you that's what's going to happen, I know they probably started researching it 20 years ago. So nobody can really tell you so. Anybody tell you so is disingenuous.
Right. Nixon, Paul, you mentioned just now that vaccines are generally safe. But let me ask, there is a mercury-based preservative used in some vaccines, thimerosal, and there have been concerns about it. Can you speak to that?
Oh, Godfrey, not at this time, I can't.
Okay, all right. Doc, any? Doc, are you with me? Are you?
I'm not hearing you. I lost half of the question. I think the internet.
No, I was asking about, because there seem to be some concerns about a mercury-based preservative that is used in vaccines. Should there be any serious concerns about this?
If that is proven, yes, because we've taken out of everything. We've taken mercury, we've moved our fillings, we've been asked to remove our fillings because we recognize the toxicity of mercury. We stopped using, remember the thermometer, the mercury in it, the little silver thing that go up and down? We don't use it. When was the last time you see one like that?
Well,
when is the last time you saw one of the pressure machine where the mercury goes up and down? That has been removed from the health services, the global health services forever. So I don't know of mercury based. I honestly cannot answer to that directly. What I know is that mercury has been considered unfit for human consumption.
Okay, wonderful. So my final question, and Dr. Nixon Paul, it's for you. As it relates to the state of our vaccines in Grenada, are you satisfied with the level of compliancy to vaccines here?
No, Godfrey, as a ministry, we are quite concerned. The figures that we are seeing is really worrying for us. Over the years, our immunization program really could have boasted of excellence, and we would have received even awards for those. If we look at 2018 to 2021, in 2018, our immunization coverage for diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, Haemophilus influenza B, and hepatitis B, which is the first 3 doses of vaccines that the child receives at 6 weeks, 4 months, and 6 months. We would have seen a 98% in 2018. In 2021, that coverage dropped to 72%. And I can tell you, Godfrey, that in 2022, it has been lower. So we have seen a significant decline in our immunization coverage. When we speak to our measles, mumps, and rubella coverage, in 2018, we had an 84% coverage, which wasn't good because the required target is really 95%. But we started seeing some decline, a significant decline since 2018. And in 2021, we had a coverage of 52%. So it tells us that 70% of our children are not fully vaccinated for the first 3 doses of vaccine. And we have half of our children in our population not vaccinated for measles, mumps, and rubella. And Grenada continues to see consistent decline in our immunization coverage. And throughout the years, we have seen an increase in vaccine hesitancy, and most of it is linked in part to misinformation, right? Okay. Persons are being influenced a lot by social media. They are obtaining information that most of the time are not factual, and they are being influenced also by family members and so maybe who reside outside of our region. And as a result, they are not compliant, or they are not taking the children to be vaccinated.
Right.
So this is why during this week, our Immunization Awareness Week, the Ministry of Health has planned several activities with a goal to create awareness and the required vaccines for all ages. And in doing so, we hope to increase our acceptance and uptake, which has been declining, as I said, among our children for over the last decade. Right. So we are really hoping that persons respond to us. We have several activities happening. The nurses are out in the community, because what happens is that we go through our immunization records, and during that week, we try to put all efforts to increase our coverage. So we go out into the community looking for the children, looking for persons who are not up to date with their vaccines. The nurses are in schools right now, visiting the schools, getting the 14-year-olds up to date with their 3rd booster of DPT, and also the 4+ with the 2nd booster of DPT. We know that we have some concerns out there by parents. Some people are voicing the opinion that they believe that the Ministry of Health is disguising COVID vaccine for administering to their children. We want to reassure the parents that this is nothing new. What is happening in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023 is nothing new. That has been going on since in the 80s or before. During the vaccination week, we use the opportunity to get our children up to date on all missing vaccines, and we make it easier for the parents, that they don't have to lose a day of work to come to the clinic, but rather the nurse goes into the school and vaccinate the children to ensure that their vaccine coverage and their vaccine status is up to date. The campaign of the week really aimed to emphasize protection that vaccine provides to individuals and their loved ones, and to stress the importance for a long, healthy life, because that is what vaccine help us to do. We are no longer in the era when our children are dying at 5. Why? Because we now have vaccines that protect them against these diseases. So we are experiencing in Grenada life expectancy of, I think, 73 years for women and about 69 thereabout for men. And we can attribute some of that towards vaccines, because these are the strategy. Was one of the strategies that was used to save lives. And we continue to emphasize the importance of vaccine in saving lives and protecting our generation from these vaccines preventable diseases. So we asking the population to be receptive to the nurses out there. We also have Godfrey on Thursday, that's the 27th at 7 p.m. We will be doing a panel discussion at St. Paul's Community Center, where we would have our pediatrician, PAHO consultant, we'd have a parent there. We also would have Mr. Ray Roberts, who is one of the survivors of polio, speaking to us about his journey through life as a survivor, living with the effects or the complications of polio. So we're encouraging the public to come out and be informed. Come and get factual information. Come and ask your questions. Let us allay your fears so that you will be better able to make informed decision for your child. I keep saying to parents, love them enough to protect them, because we all claim to love our children, but then we are saying we are not vaccinating them. So I am urging parents to love them enough to protect them. We also have an awareness walk at St. Andrews on Saturday the 29th from Progress Park to Tivoli. We will be bringing information to persons on the importance of vaccines, the benefits of vaccination. So we're asking persons to join us. Join us as we reinvigorate our immunization program. Join us as we bring back trust in our immunization program. Join us as you say, yes, we are trusting our healthcare professionals again to be able to take care of us and our children. Let us all wrap our loved ones in that ribbon of love, because vaccination is an act of love.
Right. Yes, indeed. Well said. And that has actually brought us to the end of our program. That's all the time we have. But Doc, just before we go, let me just ask, and the concern raised by Nurse St. Paul, could one of them be because of the rarity of some of these diseases, like the diphtheria and so on? We hardly hear about them anymore, and so probably parents think that there's no need for the vaccine because these conditions don't exist anymore.
Well, a lot of us grow up not knowing those diseases, you hear? Because we've had vaccines for as long as we know it. Most of us who are alive now would have been either young in the vaccine age or just young as young adults and people. So we knew of it, and we have seen the devastation that those diseases cause. Have you ever seen a child with diphtheria? I saw a man with tetanus lying on the bed like this. His head and his heel are water on the bed. And this is like you starch it, like buckram. And you know what caused that man to get tetanus? He was a farmer. He was working his land. A piece of rock broke off, fork in the land on a slope. A little piece of rock broke off and hit him on his foot and bruised it. But he accustomed to rock bruising his foot. Unfortunately, the tetanus organism likes dirt, moisture, and he was lucky enough to have had an open wound for the tetanus organism to go in there, the Clostridium tetanus, to go in there. And 2 weeks later, he starts getting sick. Never seen anything like that. Couldn't move him. He's in pain, but him stiff. And then he goes into coma and dies. So that's a reality for me. Okay? But like I told you, I grew up in an era where vaccines became very popular. And our parents were happy to have had children who could run around and play. I remember getting measles. I remember getting mumps. Not measles, but mumps I remember. Where they tied a nappy under your chin to hold up your salivary glands. But Mumps, for example, can cause, as a side effect, if you want to know long-term side effects, mumps causes infertility in men because the virus migrates down to the testicles, and a lot of men who have had mumps can't have children because it damages the gland and stops the production of sperms. And I'm not saying it's just what it is. I've known one person who had mumps as a big man. Right? And of course, when older folks get these childhood diseases, we suffer a whole lot.
Indeed.
Okay, it's worse. Childhood disease will probably go through a child quickly, the child survives it. But for adults, it's very tedious. And like we have all of these vaccines, right? All of these vaccines to protect us. You don't have to take them all at a time, but you should take your vaccines.
Get your vaccines.
I would advise. Would I give my children vaccines? Yes, I would. Okay. Yes, I would.
Yeah.
There are vaccines that have been stopped, like BCG for tetanus, and because for what's it called again? For lung infection, called TB, right? But because we haven't had as much TB as we did, we're getting back to a place where we have TB that is very resistant to the medications that were highly effective. Why would you want to have TB? You know, it takes you a year before you can complete your treatment for TB of a lot of medications. And now we have highly resistant bacilli causing TB. There are countries that have endemic TB, that have active TB. And we, economically reach out to each other. But we don't do BCG anymore because it's no longer as effective. There are a lot of people who have been, the virus isn't around very much for us, and there are a lot of people who have had immunity.
Okay. Well,
smallpox is supposed to be eradicated, so there's no smallpox vaccine given per se.
Okay.
Yellow fever is predominant in South America under the equator. Have I had a yellow fever shot? Yes, I did. And I got my yellow fever shot and had almost had an immediate bout of yellow fever. I got sick. I kid you not, in 15 minutes I had a fever, I got fatigued, and then the next week my immune system was so strong. I think I had a strong immune response to it, because by the next week I have no headache, my vision improved, all the joint pains I had were gone, because your immune system starts to say, hey, who are you? Let's get rid of him. So I know I'm most likely very well protected against yellow fever. I traveled to places where yellow fever occurred, so I needed to protect myself.
Right. Very interesting. Well, Doc, thank you so very much. St. Paul, I thank you so very much. Remember, folks, I think this Thursday, St. Paul said there is a panel discussion at the St. Paul's Community Center, and on Saturday there is a walk from Progress back to Tivoli. Of course, all geared at raising awareness on the importance of vaccines. So, parents of you who probably have your children or child and then they've not been vaccinated as yet, you need to have them vaccinated, because you just never know when something may happen, So please.
And Godfrey, further to that, even if you're an adult who may not have had your vaccines, go get them vaccines. Those vaccines are free, They're paid for by PAHO and the Ministry of Health. Yeah. So those vaccines are free. Go get your vaccines. Go to your health center and say, look, I'm not sure. You get a look at your card. Can we fix this? Because sometimes it's not necessarily for you, but for your child who may have, or your grandmother who may have her own decreased immune system, or your children, your grandchildren who are around, and you don't want to be spreading diseases to them that they absolutely do not deserve. Right. The truth is, Godfrey, it bothers me because when I looked at the numbers, I was in shock. We're really in a bad space, and I think we need to put ourselves together and be a population. We can be. We're like that. That's how we are. We're a population of responsible people that want to live in a safe space. So I'm going to ask you to reconsider. Go talk to the nurse, talk to your doctor about how you feel about your vaccine. I'm sorry. And about getting vaccines. And we've had it before. Go complete your dose, and let's keep a nice, healthy world. As we grow economically, we must also grow physically.
Right. So thank you very much. Those of you who joined us, we're very happy that you stayed with us. Of course, please take this information seriously. Remember COVID. Many people died. And of
Many
course,
people
probably if you didn't know, years gone by, many people died from other conditions. It was the vaccine that came in and started saving lives.
Save
So
the lives.
it's important that you get your vaccines. Please check, have it ready, and of course, that would be lengthening your life. All right. Thank you very much for staying with us. Don't forget, tomorrow evening, join us for the final program in this season of our Climate Reality. We'll be looking back at a number of subject areas that we touched. Join us at 8:30 for that. We have a very special one, and of course, a very special panel of guests to hold that conversation with. So until then, thank you very much. Thank you, Nas and Paul. Thank you, Dr. Nixon. Do have a good evening. All the best, and do have a good night, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Godfrey. Thank you, Dr. Nixon.
Thank you, Nurse Paul, for inviting me. Thank you, God. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Yes.
Please remember, go get your joke.